Hello, and a very big welcome to you out there who is listening and seeing this. And today we have a very special guest. It's Jennifer Sharpnack. Welcome to you. It's so nice to have you here.
Morning, thank you. Well, good
Mm.
morning, US time. Good afternoon, UK time.
Yeah, there's a little different there, about 6 hours.
Right.
So, yeah. So, please tell us a little about you, what you are doing and how you got there, so to speak, through the horses and
Sure,
all that.
sure. Absolutely. I grew up breeding Arabians and that chose to kind of branch off into a couple other breeds and disciplines as I um, went through college and, you know, having a family and things like that. So started out with Arabians, training, doing a lot of Arabian costume, park horse, English pleasure, hunter pleasure, things like that. Started dabbling in the Western disciplines with some quarter horse things and really fell in love with that as well. And as I went into college, I started helping at a Frisian farm, a Frisian breeding farm, just because my experience on the Arabian farm, and started doing a lot of their training and breeding as well, even while I was going to college. And then when I would be home on break, I'd come back to their friend's Frisian farm that ended up being up here in Ohio as well, so I could do it whether I was at school or at home, just because they liked what I did for them, and they felt that it wasn't threatening to share someone who was good to their animals with another person that they were competing with, just because you know back then it was really before all the social media and you could see what everybody was doing and people would get jealous if you posted things. And it's really, I think that type of thing has calmed down now, but back in the day, trying not to age myself, but we didn't have those things, so it was really,
No.
you just had to travel and do it. And sometimes people would take pictures or whatever, and that would be it. But most of my career has been because people have seen me at shows, heard of me working with one of their friends or another breeder, and gave me a recommendation. I've truly never had to market my business. And in this day, I feel like that's such a blessing, because as a business owner, we have to operate so much now off of social media and off of our smartphones and our laptops. And even post COVID and starting through COVID, I'm doing virtual lessons using people's pivos and things like that. So we've all adapted. But the Frisian world grew into a lot more heavy work in classical dressage, getting them ready for inspections and ratings and things like the IBOP. So in that process, I was showing and training my Trakehner, and made it to Pre St. George, and she suffered a hock luxation in the pasture, and it devastated me. But I retired her, and although that's typically a life-ending injury, it was a career-ending injury. But with all the modern medicine we have now, we were able to keep her completely comfortable. I want to say for another year and a half or 2 years. And when she decided she was ready to leave this world, we did it on a beautiful morning that it was full of sunshine. But
Mhm.
I wanted to continue her legacy with classical dressage, but I started doing it through clients at that point. I just, when you lose your heart horse, even though I had many,
Mm.
many, many, many horses, but when you lose the one that teaches you so much about yourself and riding and how to make yourself better and how to be proper, she wouldn't stand for me having a bad day. I mean, she wouldn't move. She'd be like, you need to go check yourself and come back when you're having a better day. But that's what red mares do. They teach us life lessons if you allow them to. So I just really started deep diving into clients, and I had apprenticed a few years earlier with a big quarter horse trainer. and, you know, they were studying dressage in help to train their Western horses, which was unheard of at the time. And it's funny because about 10 years ago, well, 11 at this point, Western dressage became something in the US. And I went to the school and became one of the first female train the trainer graduates for Western dressage. And the fact now that I can marry the two in your Western and stock disciplines, but also use your, you know, more traditional classic breeds that maybe are no longer with their advanced arthritis able to do piaffe, passage, and pirouettes and things like that. And maybe they can do a lower level in a Western, you know, but it is really, really taken off. And Western dressage then kind of morphed into the US embracing some working equitation and, you know, garacha work and things like that. And that's really where my business is evolving right now. But all of it is held together with Equine Biomechanics. And everything I do in my coaching or teaching or training is to try and teach my clients the parts of the horse, what they do, and what our body does to ask a horse to do things. And, you know, if you work with me, you know, I've got two sayings that people hear from me all the time. Ride the horse that shows up that day. Might not be the same one you rode yesterday, but adapt and evolve and realize they're also living creatures and they're not going to be the exact same thing every day when they wake up, just like we aren't. And the other thing is your horse gives you exactly what you ask for. That's just that as a trainer, you know, people will be upset that their horse is doing something and I can watch them from afar and see exactly what they're doing and why their horse is responding that way. And I think that's some of the biggest educational gap, I would say, at least in the US. I know in the UK, they've been studying biomechanics a lot longer than we have here. But I started incorporated it into my business about 10 or 11 years ago. Just because I feel like it helps me articulate. If I'm giving clinics or I'm doing private instruction, I feel like that really makes the light bulbs go off on the rider and say, oh my gosh, I've been doing this, I've been doing that. Now I completely understand why I'm getting what I'm getting. So that's really, I guess, in a quick nutshell of my 35 years teaching. That's kind of how it came together and brought me to where I am today.
That's amazing. And you are teaching. You are have groups, or you have one-on-one?
Yes, I do both. So I do clinics where it would be groups. I do private lessons, I do remote lessons, and I do some group lessons. If I'm not doing a clinic, I try not to do more than 2 or 3 at a time. And we're going to go about an hour, hour and a half. I want to make sure everyone gets the amount of attention they need for that time with me. So, you know, when I schedule people, I always say roughly an hour, but you know, as well as I do, we don't stop if a horse is not in a place where they're retaining or learning. You know, you always want to time it to where they end on such a fabulous note, you know, the horse and rider, and that's what they remember as their rides. So that's kind of how I do it. But with larger groups, I'm doing it more in a clinic, and I do private or public clinics. I have, you know, certain clients of mine that hold private clinics at their, you know, beautiful private facility with just their equestrian friends. And then I have ones that I open up to the public. It just really depends on what my show schedule is for the year with all of my clients and the travel schedule as to where I go and what all I take on.
Yeah, and you said something also that I have been thinking a lot about, that the horses know what mood you are in and all these things. And I know in the old books I always read that it's never the horse's fault when there's something wrong. But it seems to have been a period of time now where people the horse is going to do what I say and all that. But
yeah.
Do you think we are coming back to the old mind?
I do. I do. I should say I'm optimistic that we are. You know, I feel, and I was having a conversation with a group of clients last week over this, that I feel with the advances of technology and veterinary medicine, I feel that those that want to, including clinicians and teachers like me, we are always learning. And if we're not looking for something that's kinder, something that's better, something that's more sustainable, something that's better for a long-term partnership, if we're not seeking that out, then we're antiquated in our ways, because there is always something that some of the greats find out that this is a better way. You know, this is kinder on the horse. We don't have to wear 50-pound Western saddles on horses. And as a matter of fact, I don't allow any of my students to ride more than 26 to 28 pounds, even if it's a Western saddle, because we've learned that they can do some damage to the back. You know, I do flex trees now. That was unheard of back in the day. Why? Because I want the shoulders and the hips to be free, and I want the rider to truly feel that ride. You know, it's very antiquated to think that you sit in the saddle and you just don't move, because your horse needs you to move. And, you know, sometimes the antiquated tack of it's meant to just keep you completely steady and still in the saddle and you're not supposed to move. But how does your horse know if they're moving correctly? How do they know if you still want them to be forward if you're not riding with them? So I just feel like, I think there has been a great awakening, I think in the US at least, for people to really try harder to look for better ways that are kinder and gentler and more sustainable. So I really hope that the old ways of, you know, hearing people, and, you know, you see the horror stories of beating horses into submission or whatever. One, you know, for a person to have that much anger and angst in their body, they shouldn't even be working with horses if that's your
Oh,
go-to. And two, what do you think that accomplish? All that accomplishes is fear. And fear elicits pain response and fear response. And these are fight or flight animals that, you know, were put on this earth not to have a human around on its back. They're put on this earth to put their head down in the grass all day, graze and move and make babies. What they do for us is a privilege and a gift. And it should be never, ever, ever taken for granted with heavy hands and huge spurs and all these contraptions that people try and put on their horse to forcibly put them in a frame that they're not built to be in. And, you know, my hope is like yours, that we're evolving back to a kinder way.
yeah, that's fantastic. How you have been working with Arabians, you said, and Frisian. Is there any connection there? It sounds like,
Well, for
yeah.
Arabians and Frisians, there is some connection. I also, in the last 10 years, have been working with gypsy vanners. I find that vanners and Frisians are more alike. Frisians and Arabians have similar temperament, and they have similarities to a lot of more natural uphill movement. But the strength that you get with a Frisian and a gypsy vanner are unmatched. I mean, that power and the driving power is just unmatched, really.
Mm. Yeah, you said driving power. How is it when you ride them or you drive them?
Both, both.
Both.
So Arabians, you know, they have a lot of power in their hock, but they're a lighter breed. They're a lighter
Mm.
boned horse. Stature, they're not very large. So the power that you feel when you ride them or drive them is purely hock related, in my opinion. They don't offer as much shoulder. I mean, I get them to as much as possible. But then when you switch to your Frisians and your cob breeds like your vanners, that bone on them is substantial and you feel that movement, and it's glorious. It's absolutely glorious to feel that stature working all four legs underneath you. whether you're driving them and you feel that first leap into that pleasure trot or park gait, and then when you feel them under saddle, especially new ones, when you're just breaking them and they're learning how their back end works and they're so excited because they're so strong. There's nothing better than getting on them and they have that invigoration in them and they know their power and riding through that power. I mean, it gives me goosebumps just to talk about it.
Yeah, I know Frisian is very special, but I think that Frisian has what do you say? They don't fit in other groups of horses.
Agreed.
Yeah,
Agreed.
because
Agreed.
their posture when they come, other horses think that they are attacking them, but they
Yes.
have this natural high head.
Yes, they have a presence about them, very similar to, saddlebreds and things like that in the US. We've got a lot of high, tall chestiness
Yeah,
with a presence about them. But you're right, how when horses see them, they sometimes, not Frisians, can take them as a little bit threatening because they have such a presence about them and they have such a collected movement with large footfalls that all horses look and go, oh, what is that?
yeah,
So you're exactly right. They can elicit some responses that we didn't expect.
yeah. So you are teaching. Are you moving around or you have your own
So, yes.
barn?
So I have my own facility in Medina, Ohio. That's in Northeast Ohio. So it's mid-US, Midwest-ish.
Mhm.
But I travel all over the US for clients because, they may have sent their horse in for training with me, but live in California or live in Pennsylvania or live somewhere else. So sometimes I will fly out there, I will clinic with them, or I will do virtual lessons as they take the horse home. And the nice thing about the newer Pivo systems is they wear an earpiece.
Yeah.
They can put their Pivo on something in the middle of the ring. It can be on the end of the ring, whatever's more convenient to what seat we're practicing or whatever. And I coach them real time as I'm watching them ride. And it was such a beautiful thing during COVID that we had that opportunity. And with Pivo, they had just started out doing the recordings, and then they added the Bluetooth headset and the things like that midway through COVID. So I didn't have the opportunity to teach virtually maybe the first year and a half during that. But what I would do was we had our big, I'm not sure if you're familiar, there was a really big international trainer association that when COVID happened, they did a fundraiser and they were asking for nominations of trainers internationally that they felt they would love to do a one-on-one with virtually, and it would go to the trainer foundation for some of these trainers that literally had no income coming in during COVID. So I
Okay.
was nominated for the US to do all of the Western dressage. So what people would do is they would pay $25 or $50 to this association. They would have someone record them doing their test. And then what I would do is I would play their recording on my big screen, and I'd have my audit sheet and my judging sheet down, and I would judge them on their judging sheet, but also verbally coach them real time. If you use your cell phone and you press record, it will record at the exact same time that I turn on their video. So when she turns on her video, she hears my voice when I send it back and what I would correct, and then I would send her score sheet. So those are, and I say her because all of them were females that I had during that time, so it just happened to be her. That was their pronouns. So I I think there are ways to do whatever you need to do to reach the audience you need to reach to. But I do travel. I travel all over the US to do clinics as well as to the shows. I have never been asked to travel internationally yet, but I, have a passport and I'm willing. So, but I have the bulk of my training horses at my place, but I also travel because, people start with you and then life changes for them and they buy a house and have to move an hour away or whatever. My clients are wonderful and, they compensate me for my time to travel to them, and I make them a priority in my schedule. And, when you do what you love, you don't work a day.
No.
So I'm happy to travel for my clients. They're all very loyal to me. Many of my clients have been with me 15 to 20 years,
Wow.
and I'm on their third or fourth or fifth horse that I've found and trained or coached through them. So, that's an evolution to being in this industry as long as I have.
Yeah, and I suppose you learn also all the time, so you can go with them up the ladder.
I have a client who expressed the interest of doing working equitation, and she is a client that rides a stallion, a Gypsy Banner stallion, and she has really done a great job with him in Western dressage and many other breed disciplines, but she does Garacha with him. And when she started with my things from doing Garacha with my Frisian. So she was wearing even part of my outfit and everything else, and she fell in love with it. Her horse fell in love with it. And when she saw that there was such a thing of working equitation and Gorocho was actually added to that, a piece to that, she was on that. Well, being that that's newer to the US, I took the education for my client. We go to every clinic, every trial, because I want to know everything there is for my client as well.
Mm.
So there are very typical evenings. I am watching clinicians on my own time at home at midnight, because I want to learn more. I want to do more. I want to understand the ins and outs of everything. So, I also reach out to the trainers that are known for doing disciplines like that and pick their brain and see if they have any education. So, I am learning every single day because I have to, because as the industry evolves, I want to evolve too. And I want to make sure that my clients know that I have a vested interest in what they want to do and what they want to learn. And just because it wasn't one of the 10 world champions classes that I've trained in or horses, I'm right there with them, and I want to see them all the way. So that's kind of where our journey has been lately. She has been asked to perform at a lot of different events, her Garocha, but we are smack dab in the middle of now working equitation season where she's going to be doing one of her first shows now coming up. So I am always learning, always embracing new techniques or new ways to do things. We have a couple events in the US that are held annually called Equine Affair. And we happen to be so lucky to have one in Ohio in April, and then I think the other one is in Massachusetts in the fall. And the Gypsy Vanner group that I work with was asked to do breed demos at this, and we did costumes and all sorts of performance. So in addition to just, I shouldn't say the word just, but in addition to coaching for biomechanics and show classes and people that just want to advance their riders, I also choreograph performances, so, and freestyle dressage to music and things like that. So you know everything I do is exciting to me, so why wouldn't I want to continue to learn? I want
Mhm.
my clients that work with me, my job is to make their dreams come true. Those are my personal goals.
Wow, yeah, that sounds great. And could you explain to me, who doesn't know anything about Western dressage, what is the difference in English dressage and Western?
So such a common question and such a very simple response. The only difference is the tests and the tack. The same principles of movements are to be done. And Western dressage was started to have a career for that stock horse that wanted more than just flat knees, slow lope, slow jog for Western pleasure. The one that likes the patterns, the one that has some action, that has some lightness on their forehand, that isn't falling down on themselves. It was co-founded by Lynn Palm, who is I believe it's like a 36-time world champion and a 30-time reserve world champion in AQHA, Quarter Horse, Stock Horse Association. She married someone who is a very, very successful trainer in classical dressage. And she partnered with a gentleman who runs the Morgan Association, and the Morgan Association, Cliff Swanson. And they said, what are we doing? Can't we marry these disciplines? There has to be a place for these fancier moving stock horses or Western horses to be able to continue to advance in their principles. Because Western riders have used dressage principles in training for years. They just haven't had an outlet to put it in. So in teaching dressage movements and subtling techniques, they were able to perform better in their rail and pattern and reining and cutting classes, but they had nowhere to actually perform the tests. So this gave an avenue for them to be tested, just like in the English dressage, we call it classical dressage world. So, they are the same levels. You have your novice, intro, which is your classical. And then for us, we have intro, same thing. And then in Western dressage, it goes to basic. That's opening up to all canter tests or lope tests, where yours would be intro as well as first level or training level after that. First level is pretty the same. Apples to apples, just different movements at different letters. The only difference is, with the addition of FEI Intermediate 1 and 2 and Pre-St. George, our Western dressage now goes to 5th level. So basically your collected canter down the center line, and after you halt at X and salute, you I believe it's still a canter pirouette at X to start your test, like clinching tests. So if you actually put some of the Western dressage tests next to the USDF classical dressage tests, some of the Western tests are longer and some of them have a little bit more difficulty. There's a little more element of some work that is a little earlier on in the Western test that is a little later on in the classical test. Everything still ends with that training period of collection being the ultimate goal, but just different variations of things as you work into that goal. But the tack, it's a Western saddle. They frown upon anything too silvery or ornate or heavy, very same bits that are permitted in classical dressage are permitted in Western dressage, with the exception of a couple Western bits as well. But it's the same thing. I mean, no twisted Kimberwicks, things like that, no Pelham, like a lot of the rules and regulations for the benefit of the horse are the same. It just looks different because the tack is different. But in all reality, most riders in Western dressage are wearing a cavesson. They have the same goals for the face as you would in classical. They're just not wearing a flash noseband, where a lot of dressage riders aren't really doing a lot of that anymore anyway. So, there aren't as many differences as there are similarities, which is very funny to me because so many people think it's so different. But if you pull up any of the tests through YouTube or going on the WDAA, which is the Western Dressage Association of America, looking at any of the tests, you're going to find, oh, wow, that looks very similar, just with different tack and obviously different outfits for the riders. A lot will wear a full seat breech or a full seat equitation pant with a paddock boot or a Western boot. Some of them wear chaps or chinks, and you're wearing a button-up long sleeve shirt, so you're not wearing a jacket, but you might be wearing a long sleeve shirt, a wild rag, and a vest. So there are some different variations. You also might be wearing a ranch style outfit, because that too has lent itself to Western dressage, that a lot of the rise in ranch has come from a need to have a more working style gait. And when they see a lot of the stock horses doing so well in Western dressage, that's when ranch started to become really big in the US as well. And they have a lot of similarities in their tack and outfits. So many riders can do both disciplines and not have to spend a lot of money on separate saddles and separate bridles and separate outfits and things like that. So hopefully that gave you a little insight. It's not quite
thank you.
as different as what people think.
Because I have been wondering.
Breed. You can show any breed in Western dressage. There is not, and as a matter of fact, a lot of the breed associations have affiliate programs that you can get breed points if you do a rated or recognized Western dressage show. So, you not only can compete in the WDAA, but you can also be competing in the Paint Horse Association or Frisian Sport Horse and things like that, and get breed points for doing Western dressage.
Mm-hmm. Wow. But I know that in the classical dressage, they try to get the horses with big movements and all that. But I know that the Western horses maybe have not the same movement.
Mm-hmm.
How will that affect the points?
So in Western, your trot is called a jog because it has a little bit more of there's a little more collection in it. There isn't as much lift in the knee. And the canter is called the lope. So stock horses doing Western dressage, their gaits are going to look, a little less animated than your classical. But the nice thing is, in Western dressage, we have Frisians and Arabians that do it. And that same action, that big action that is in classical, is working in Western dressage. It's just that they score based on the breed of the horse that is training in front of them. They are not going to look at a Frisian's jog quite the same as a quarter horse jog. They're just not. It's very evident biomechanically, they are not going to move the same. So they are scored accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
So that is, I feel like that's an advantage because, in my world, that my students that do both, that do classical and Western, the stock horses don't score as well doing classical because they don't have as much lift and as much hock. However, my classical horses score just as good in their Western or their classical because the movement is true to their body type and their breed. So that's really the only difference. We still have capital S and capital R USDF judges, just like classical shows, that have went through additional training for Western dressage. So we still have the very high level judges that we're showing in front of. And they have started even to embrace it even more, to do some clinic, some of the higher level classical judges are starting to do some clinics on how to incorporate Western dressage into, your program and things like that, because they see a value in dressage as a sport for everyone. every age, every skill level, every breed, every age of horse. You know, my Trakehner was 28 when when her last day on earth she was 28, but she was retired at 25. But I had taken her down a level because, you know, she was probably 22 and still could piaffe and passage, but the energy started to be reduced. And it was time. It was time to then start going backwards and go, okay, you know, tests change every 5 years. So by the time we went back, those tests she hadn't even seen before because they were completely new tests. So there's always in dressage a place you can go if your horse gets to a high level and experiences an injury. You can rehab through lower level dressage. If your horse was a jumper and can no longer jump because it's too hard keeping them sound, you know, and injections are no longer working, we can keep you in a sport with dressage and keep you competing if you would like, to where it's a much easier payload on their joints, you know, because there are lower levels. So I feel like Western dressage, opening it up for all breeds, not just stock, it's really made dressage a sport for everyone. You know, we have exceptional rider programs, we have therapeutic riding programs. So we have Western dressage programs for developmentally disabled youth, adult, people that are doing it therapeutically, perhaps that are blind, that are deaf, that can't speak. We have completely coached tests for that community as well. We have walk-only Western dressage tests for those that's all their horse can do. Maybe they're really young. We have lead line Western dressage, so you can get your little out there learning letters and learning it's walk jog, learning little movements and things like that. So, you know, it truly is a sport or discipline for everyone. And even if you are never going to compete, it will help you make that long-term partnership with your horse more sustainable. It's going to make them better on trail. It's going to make them better when you haul to a clinic. It's going to make them better for your rail class. And it's going to give you an avenue to always have something to do with your horse as they age, or as you're starting a youngster because, you know, your other one is retired. There's always ways and places for these animals in this sport.
Mm. And human as well. You can be old when you're in it.
The average age of my Western dressage rider or biomechanics student is 50.
Mm.
And I have students in their 70s.
Yeah.
So that are still going strong. And then I have 5-year-olds who are learning the right way on a lunge line and a lead line. So, you know, it's a sport for everyone and any age. And it's a good group of people.
Where do you find that anyway? I mean,
I know.
that is fantastic. Yeah.
Agreed. That's why it's so exciting to me. You know, we still do all of our classical dressage things, and most of the shows we go to have both, and we'll compete in both. But again, my non-fancy movers just don't score as well. For obvious reason, they're looking for much, much more uphill, and some of them just aren't built that way. But in the Western dressage tests, any horse in my group will score how they should, you know, whatever they earned during that test. So based on what is best for their body and what their body biomechanically can do based on the breed that's in front of the judge. And I love that.
Yeah, that is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
But I reckon you have a lot to do. Do you take new people in or?
Sure. Yes, I do. I absolutely take new clients because with a practice that has been as long as mine, I have assistants, and they are my right and left hand. And, you know, when I'm traveling to shows, my training program, my lesson program does not miss a beat. They even travel to my other clients. So, and I also have student interns during the school year. And then I have some that are in the summer for the extra help during the busy time. So I would never be able to do it if I didn't have such an amazing staff of assistants. And not only assistants for teaching, but, I have masseuse and, we do PEMF through MagnaWave, and we do a lot of different taping and therapies for them to make sure they're always at their best. So in my practice, not only do I have other trainers and teachers and coaches, I employ therapists to be in my practice to make sure, because as you're working a horse and training a horse, their body's going to go through some changes. And just like me, if I ran a marathon, I'm going to be sore the next day, or, I'm going to, as I'm training for a marathon, I'm going to find I have a weakness somewhere or whatever. Horses are no different. So if they're going to give us the things that we are asking from them in these partnerships, we also need to make sure they feel good, and that they're pain free, and that they're loose and supple. And you don't just do that through riding. Sometimes you got to do massage and chiro and different manipulation and myofascial release. And, so many of those things I incorporate into what I do, because you need it all. I mean, it takes a village to make an athlete, the rider and the horse. It takes a village. I encourage my riders, go get a massage, go get chiro, get that knee injected again. You're due. You're starting to hold it too high. You know what I mean? Like, they'll say, "Oh, let me know when you think I need it injected again." And I'll be like, "You're starting to be there." So, I have those even frank health conversations with my clients, because I have these long-term relationships with them. And I too am an aging equestrian in my 50s that needs maintenance myself. And, I might get off one and go, "Oh, my back felt that one just like another person." So I'm right there with you going, "Hey, I tried acupuncture, I tried this." And, so we take care and do all of those therapies with our horses, but we also do them with ourselves, because as we age in equestrians, we're not the 12-year-old that could jump on bareback from the ground anymore and go for hours. We feel it the next day sometimes, even riding as much as we do. So I try and do a team approach. The horse and the rider need some, therapeutic things, but my my assistants, like I said, I have therapy assistants, and then I have training assistants. So we are covered no matter where I'm at in the US, no matter if I'm at a show, my clients will never not be taken care of. So I take new clients. If there ever got to be a point geographically where I was like, "Ooh, I'm not sure," I would talk to my team and say, "Does somebody want to pick up another day? Do we want to change up or look at the schedule, because this person really needs us?" And I do look at it like that. I want teams that are going to be sustainable. I I try to vet as much as possible who I might take on, because I'm not about taking on the person that just wants to work a horse hard, flip them for money, get another horse, flip them. I my ideal clients want their horses to be with them till their last days on earth, like I do, whether they can be ridden or not. And those are the clients that I bend over backwards for, because they are cut from the same cloth that I am. And it is worth my time and my investment in time to make their partnership sustainable, because I know they still want to be riding into their 70s and 80s just like me. So it is worth it to me to help build that partnership. It is not worth it to me, despite how much somebody might offer to me, to help them just quickly train a horse because they want to sell it, get rid of it, or whatever, or look good at this show in front of people and then not work all for 6 months. I'm not that kind of trainer. I'm not the one that you just hire to get you things and one-sided. I am a very reciprocal partnership. I get just as much satisfaction and happiness when you achieve as when I do. And the other type of people don't. They get a rush out of winning for that time period, and then they'll throw the horse away and get the next best thing. That's just not who I'm aligned with. I'm not being judgy. I know everyone has their reasons for whatever. It's just not who I am and who I surround myself with. So as long as I know it's a person that really wants to work on a relationship, I realize not all horses work out for every person. And sometimes they're overhorsed or underhorsed and things like that. I am very realistic to understand that. But is the rider wanting to do things to do it because it's what's best for the horse? Are they wanting to train more kinder, in a more natural way? I do a lot of teaching based on herd principle. So I do a lot to teach my riders to watch and observe your horse and how they interact with other horses, and how sometimes you need to train them because maybe they're young and they've only been with their mama and whoever else they might be turned out with, and they need to be taught by herd principle. So I want people that want to understand training techniques that maybe aren't even ones that people do a lot with or know a lot with, but are successful, and they're willing to embrace it because they know that it's a kinder, gentler way of training, and it's more sustainer in the long run. We save joints as long as we can, and that's, just like ours. I want to save my joints as long as I can. I want to save your horse's joints as long as I can. And I want your horse to love seeing me. That's one of the biggest things that I hear from my clients. If I take on a new client, they would say, when my trainer would walk into the ring, my horse would just freeze up or start getting nervous or passing gas or just bouncing. My clients' horses come up to me and greet me and are happy that I'm walking in the ring. And when I praise them, they look at me and are like, she was happy with what I did. I'm so excited. And that's one of the biggest feedback I hear from my clients is, my horses love you. Why do my horses love you? Why? Because when they see me, they equate me to a kind ride from their rider. There's nothing secret. There's nothing scientific about it. That's it. That's herd principle. That person makes me feel like this. I like them. That's herd principle. So I want your horse to trust me and be willing to learn from me, because they will learn that I'm an advocate for them. And again, I don't work a day in my life because I see those things coming to fruition, and it just tells me this is what I was meant to do.
Fantastic. How do people get in touch with you then? Do you have a web page or something?
I do not have a web page because I am very referral based. However, I am on all the social medias, and that's how most people reach out to me. I have the Jennifer A. Sharpnack, which is my personal page, or I also have Jennifer Sharpnack Equestrian, and that is my business page. But being that I operate off of my personal Facebook page too, because I know, so many people follow me, either way, you can contact me. My cell phone, people text. I'm on WhatsApp, so I can get international texts and things like that. Jennifer Sharpnack at Yahoo. You can email me, Equine Partners at Yahoo. Any of those ways to get in touch with me. And I'm always happy, to talk it over and I do free consults, talking it over with people to see if we're even a fit, even before I even see your horse or anything like that. But also, the other services I provide is I'll find you a good equine partner. If you need your next horse, you tell me your goals. I do all the legwork on that. I can make you your next equine partner. I have hundreds of partnerships with different breeders, with different breeds across the US if we need something basically made, based on what your goals are, what your capabilities are, what you're looking like for in temperament and budget and things like that. So there are additional things that I do. I also do show clothing and tack consults. I will put together, your color scheme for your horse to make you look the most professional, because in Western dressage, we get awards for turnout, which is what we call the horse and rider combo. And a lot of international things do turnout awards too. And I want to make sure that when you go into that ring, you feel good about yourself. You know that you are put together, you are poised, you look professionally partnered. I want you to go there and people are going to know that's a Jennifer Sharpnack Equestrian team. It's true. I mean, I'll be up at 2 a.m. looking for show outfits in just the right color for the coat of your strawberry roan. I mean, that's just how it is. So my practice, my teaching and coaching and training practice has several different things that go into it and other services that I offer as well.
Mm.
So you can get a hold of me, Insta, same thing, Jennifer Sharpnack Equestrian, Facebook, Jennifer Sharpnack Equestrian, email, Equine Partners or Jennifer Sharpnack at Yahoo. Anyway, but you can reach out to me on WhatsApp as well if you would rather set up a call. I do Zoom, I do Microsoft Teams, I do, you can FaceTime me. I know that this is a digital world and I embrace whatever needs to happen so people can reach out to me.
That's great. When do you sleep?
About 5 or 6 hours a night. But again, when you're passionate about something, and again, I built this myself, like from my own, blood, sweat, and tears. I'm going to make sure it's successful. I put the effort into it because a business doesn't grow without, flowers don't grow without being watered. And my off hours studying and going to clinics and things like that are how I water my flock, my flock of flowers that I'm working on. And whether that be you, your horse, or you and your horse, that's what I'm doing. I just want people to associate me with the very best in sustainability and training through biomechanics and herd principle. That's what I want to be known for. So that means I personally need to continue to educate myself and grow as well. And do things like this, share the word. This was such an exciting opportunity for me to talk to you because, getting a little more of this out there with biomechanics. You already do so much beautiful work in biomechanics in the UK, but Western dressage I know out there is still newer. In Australia and Sweden, it is hopping. We right now have our Western Dressage International show that's going on. They're actually recorded tests. We have like 2,000 to 4,000 at any given time that they had said reported attempting to send tests in. So, it is a growing sport because any breed, any age, any level can compete in this and do something fun with your friends, with your older horse, with your younger horse. Just go on a clinic with the girlfriends for a weekend and people that are all learning at the same age and all in it together. And there isn't better camaraderie than Western dressage, in my opinion. I've just been embraced by so many breed associations and so many people that I would think wouldn't understand it that really are seeing the value in it.
Yeah, and I can really hear and feel your passion for it. It's great.
Wonderful.
Do you have anything more to say about it?
I'm gonna leave you with this. One of my favorite books. If you're wanting a good read this year on vacation, and I read it every year when I take vacation, even though I've read it 25 times, Horse Brain, Human Brain. It is a wonderful book, and it has great insight as to how the horse is thinking when you do certain things and how you make them feel and how you can adjust your training to different learning styles. I'm going to call that my Bible. And then Horse Follow Closely. It's by an indigenous gentleman named Guani Pony Boy. And that's where a lot of my studying of herd principles started, with just that book. So if you want some great summer reading for your vacation or poolside or traveling, I would recommend, if you want to start looking into training through biomechanics or herd principle, or just wanting to learn different ways that you can apply your current techniques, I'd take a look at those books. And again, learning is invaluable. And as equestrians, the day we quit learning is the day we quit really riding properly, in my opinion. So hopefully I can leave you with that.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
It has really been a pleasure to meeting you and hear about you. And I hope you out there also think that. And thank you for listening, and thank you for seeing this. And thank you, Jennifer, for being here today.
Anytime. Thank you for having me.
And I hope that you would subscribe on this channel, because it means a lot to me to carry on with all these beautiful people. So thanks a lot.
Thank you.
See you.
All right. Thank you.